There are many words in Biblical Hebrew that have more than one meaning, and choosing the best meaning by translators can be a difficult task. We see such a translation struggle within Isaiah 53:2. In this video, I want to focus on three specific words within that verse. The word Yonek in the Hebrew Scriptures has two different but related meanings. It can refer to a very young baby who suckles, as in Isaiah 11:8, or to a group of young plants, sometimes known as suckers. The Septuagint for Isaiah 53:2 chose to translate Yonek as a child, rejecting the metaphorical value of the plants. Yonek is a masculine singular noun, as used in Isaiah 53:2 as well as in Job 8:16. While Yonek comes in several spelling variants, one for male and another for female, as well as one for singular and another for plural, I will refer to them collectively as Yonek for simplicity, especially since the spelling doesn't change its symbolic use. These suckers, or offshoots, grow upward from the trunk or roots of a tree, usually in a group. The Yonek are nurtured and are extensions of the mother tree. The imagery of these plants is the perfect metaphor for a group of descendants. In Isaiah 53:2, the noun begins with the letter kaf that translates to likened to, denoting a metaphor, but not every instance of metaphors are presented just as clearly. I'm about to show you some examples as used in other writings, because when different books speak of the same or similar event using the same metaphor, it can provide insight. First up is Ezekiel. Within Hebrew Scriptures, the book of Ezekiel is one of the most difficult. Here is an example of one issue where verbs are missing associated nouns. The result is that many translators simply inserted the word it to make it flow better. The problem is that every it inserted refers back to the plural feminine form of Yonek. In my translation, I try to correct that. Here the term refers to the descendants of the Jews who were exiled to Babylon, and whose descendants will one day be taken from Babylon and transported by God to the high place, the Mount of God. Next, we have a verse of Psalms. It uses plant metaphors to speak of the descendants of Jacob as branches who were in exile in Egypt and who were brought through the parting of the sea, while the later generations, the Yonek, were brought to the river Jordan. Verse 11 also uses similar language as Ezekiel, speaking of mountains and cedars. Finally, in the last chapter of the book of Hosea, we see the promise for many descendants, the Yonek. It speaks to those in exile in Babylon. In earlier verses, the prophet promised that God's anger against the exiled Jews will eventually cease, using the symbol of the tree of Lebanon, the cedar, as we saw in Ezekiel and Psalms. And now you know more about Yonek than most. Another word that can refer to humans or plants, which parallels Yonek, is Shoresh, or root. It is also found in Isaiah 53:2, and, like Yonek, it is prefixed with a metaphorical indicator, the letter kaf. And it too can refer to the actual part of a plant, the oldest part, the one that runs deepest and is generally unseen. As a metaphor that refers to humans, Shoresh often refers to the ancestry of a people or something established long ago. We use it today when we speak in English of returning to our roots, our origins. Its literary use, playing it against the Yonek, creates a sort of parallelism. But there's a third word here that I want to point out, the one that describes where the Shoresh is residing, and it isn't often. It appears only 13 times in the entire Tanach, and while the Hebrew word midbar is usually the word used for a desert wilderness, Tziah is occasionally used, although it seems to be more intense and is part of a punishment when used in a prophetic work. So let's look at a few examples of this metaphor. Ezekiel 19:13 has a Jewish people who were taken to Babylon and refers to Babylon as a land of Tziah. In Isaiah 41:18, God speaks of taking over a place and transforming the land into one of Tziah. This is God promising to end Babylon. We see a similar expression in Psalm 107, verse 35. Jeremiah chapter 51, verses 42 through 43 speaks of turning Babylon into a land of Tziah. So to summarize, the beginning of Isaiah 53 verse 2 refers to a promised event where Babylon will be utterly decimated, and the descendants of those who were forced there will either go by themselves or be taken to stand before God, meaning to rush to Jerusalem and their temple. we see similar failed promises by other prophets. And that ends today's video. I hope you found it of value. If you did, please press the like and subscribe buttons if you have not yet done so. I'm Elisha Ben Abuya, and until next time.